Good morning. I have a cold. Let's see. Is this thing working? There we go. Oh my gosh. Yes, I do have a cold. I'm sick. So, okay. We have audio. Let's see if I can get through this. What is today? November 7th. Good morning, Mo. Um, ask a question. Join the chat. Mostly on YouTube, apparently, but also on Twitch and Twitter. So there's a good comic on disable all cookies for your entertainment. Strangely, I have been sick since last weekend. Varying degrees. Thought I was getting better, and apparently not. So I had a mild cold last weekend, so I felt well enough to do some vibe coding and catch up on that, which I've been wanting to do for months since I presented on vibe coding at Dynamics Con, I think. I can't remember. It must have been Dynamics Con. So I did a demo of vibe coding with Business Central, doing AL development using Cursor and just letting it run. And it was pretty darn good. I could get it to say 95, 98%. So last weekend, I worked on the prompt and the PRD, refined it, saw the mistakes, went back and modified the PRD to handle those mistakes, repeated it several times, and I'm basically at 99%. It's up to kind of randomness at this point that everything is technically correct, but the AI will just make mistakes. And it's not due to lack of definitions or anything, as far as I could tell, just random inconsistencies. So I now have what I'm calling the Vibe Coding Benchmark PRD to develop a support plan, support contract application in Business Central that tracks customer support plans. For instance, for us as a partner to manage those plans and see which customers have support plans, what level. It's hypothetical, but we'll probably end up using something like that. And is the support plan active? Is it expiring? Has it already expired? What's the status? Different levels, basic, premium, something to that effect. And what I did in addition to refining the PRD and getting consistent results is I tested Cursor versus Copilot to answer the 6-month-old question, which is better. And really, at this point, as far as I could tell, in terms of the output, they are effectively the same. However, the experience of using them is different. Cursor is early on, there wasn't much apparent difference, but Cursor is now adding features to their branch of VS Code that changes, enhances, and supplements the vibe coding or AI assisted coding experience. And it also, there's a philosophy showing up in Cursor versus Copilot, very different philosophies in terms of how the developer should interact with the agent. I found Cursor to be smoother, easier, much better user experience than Copilot. Copilot tries to expose more details, more technical plumbing of what's going on. It constantly prompts you for, should I be allowed to do this? Can you please approve it? Sorry, my mic volume is a little annoying. And it exposes these PowerShell scripts, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is doing. And so it's kind of these arcane things. My interpretation is that it is an attempt to expose the actions of the agent to ensure there's human approval, human review. The problem with that is, just like dialog boxes, after the 50th time you see something, you are so tired of those constant dialog boxes that you start to ignore them. you stop reading them and they lose all value. So just like a user will email a support request to us and say, I'm getting an error in Business Central. What's the error? I don't know. It's just a bunch of dialogues that I have to keep clicking through. They completely ignore them. It's complete dialogue fatigue. That's what I experienced in Copilot. That was my impression. So it was interesting to see both and test both. Not a better or worse in terms of the output, but the development experience is very different. And Cursor is innovating very rapidly. I'm not quite sure what Copilot is doing, but I've seen Cursor is enhancing the development tools very, very rapidly. So that was interesting. Weekly projects, IDEs, PRDs, LLMs, vibe coding, continuation of that. BC updates. For a partner, it's pretty chaotic. I don't know what the experience is like for the customer. My impression for most of our customers is that the BC update process is just completely out of their league in terms of ability to understand what's going on. So that poses a challenge. We have been working on the Blue Dragonfly partner dashboard, which I believe I'll show later. And then I was supposed to work on statements of work, but alas, the cold has taken me down. Oh my gosh. These interns, I swear. Let me try and fix this, get that out of the way, and there we go. Okay. So AL vibe coding, if you're interested in AL vibe coding or AI agent assisted coding, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I saw Ted, vibe coding was named word of the year for dictionary or publisher. And the authors of the book Vibe Coding are thrilled about that. I'm currently reading that. So for vibe coding, I'd recommend focusing on fundamentals first, which surprisingly involves learning Markdown. And learning Markdown, it's not a difficult process, a very basic text-based file formatting syntax, but it was just one of these things like, okay, I created a PRD in Word. Oh, AIs can't read Word. Okay, how about a PDF? No, can't really do that either. It's like, you've got to be kidding me, right? So you can't really save from Word to a text format that's even remotely readable. It looks horrible. So it's like, okay, how do I get it to Markdown? Oh, Word doesn't support saving to Markdown. Just like, you're kidding me, right? So I've kind of given up on my normal process, and I don't know how I'm going to, if I use this for customer projects, how I'm going to share this with the customer, because sharing a Markdown file with a customer would be a waste of time. But anyway, for this exercise, just get comfortable in Markdown. At this point, I'm kind of going with VS Code for a couple reasons. I tried Ultra Edit, Notepad++. I looked at Typora and the other Markdown friendly or Markdown native tools. And the issue is just one more tool, one more subscription, one more thing to deal with. And how do you do it on a desktop versus mobile? It's like, whatever. So this little thing is this annoying hurdle that you have to deal with. So for now, I'm kind of doing VS Code. That may change. Then once you get comfortable with just creating a Markdown file and the basic syntax and formatting of it, for file structure, learn a little bit about prompt engineering. It's not rocket science, but the single line of build me a customer support contract management app is insufficient. You'll want to have a little more involved prompt. And one of the major things is don't try to include all of your product requirements in a single prompt. So now I create a PRD document, and my prompt just says, read this PRD, here are your wireframes with sketches of the mock-ups of the screens, and off you go. And one interesting thing that I'm related to Cursor versus Copilot, in Cursor, I can just put the prompt in my PRD. And I literally do not have to have any words in my cursor prompt. I just open the PRD, which has the prompt, click a button, literally no words in the prompt. Cursor figures it out, reads the prompt, reads the full PRD, and it's on its way. As far as I could tell, could be wrong here, but based on my one test, Copilot, you have to supply the prompt. You can't just point it to the file and have it understand that there's a prompt in the file. So little things like that, imagine that times 10 times 15. And Cursor really starts to just become a more friendly IDE for AI dev. Now, people have been using VS Code for years. The feedback I've received is that they're annoyed by Cursor because the the layout and the shortcuts and just things that they have on muscle memory are different. And so they think that Cursor is probably better, but they can't tolerate the change. So they stick with Copilot. I would say you might want to get over that and at least try Cursor again. It has changed dramatically. You can remap shortcuts, I believe, and the features that are being pushed into Cursor very, very quickly, I think are starting to differentiate it, and Cursor's trying to justify their value in the marketplace, and I think they're doing a good job. Ted asks a good question. What do you use to build wireframes? Let me just pull it up. I use my ultimate sketchpad tool, PowerPoint. So I've tried a bunch of things. You can use Figma, you can use all these fancy subscription tools, but I use PowerPoint. I use this on design calls with my team. I sketch up all sorts of stuff, do proof of concepts, and this is mocked up in PowerPoint in a matter of minutes and super easy to do. You just drop in a table, you drop in simulated fields. It does not have to be UI perfect. Cursor and Copilot both, whatever the agents they use, whatever you choose, they can understand this. And so it does not have to be perfect. It just has to be kind of representative of what you want. So this has worked perfectly for me. You notice I had different colors originally. This is an old version. I kind of cleaned it up. You don't really need that unless you want it for visual indicators, but this is an example of the wireframe that I supplied to in my PRD. And in the PRD, you can just reference the wireframes or wireframe files or whatever. So yeah, that's what I use. Worked great. Super slick. I have PowerPoint everywhere. So, okay. So, Git for everything. One reason why I'm looking into VS Code for the PRD is, can you feed the PPT file to an AI? I'm 99% sure the answer is no. So you have to save it. I screenshot it and snag it and save the wireframe as like wireframe 1 list page, wireframe 2 card page, and I drop it in the docs folder with the PRD. Welcome, Senior Brad. So one of the reasons I am now thinking VS Code for my PRDs, one, it supports Markdown. Number two, I need a process whereby I start step 1, create a repository, so that even the first draft of my PRD goes into Git. I learned the hard way. I was messing around, and I'll mention later that Windows File Explorer was like bizarre. The timestamps were wrong. I was like, what is going on? I got confused by the timestamps and the versions, and I did a Control Z in File Explorer. It wiped out my PRD. It rolled it back to 2 hours ago, lost a couple hours of work. I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So I want my PRDs in Git, whether you use Git, GitHub, DevOps, whatever. So now I got to figure out, okay, I don't even have a project yet. This is like very early days. I'm trying to create a PRD. I don't want to create a full alpaca project for just a PRD. So how do I get this in Git? So we briefly discussed, my developer and I discussed, well, do we just have a PRD repo? How do we do this? I don't know. So at least in the initial stages, I now want my PRD in a Git repo. And maybe once I have a draft that's ready, I'll drop it in the project repository and we'll get more formal with it. But I don't know. I highly recommend Git for your PRDs just so it's tracking the revisions, right? And if you're doing phone calls and design meetings with a customer and your PRD is evolving, absolutely you want this thing in Git to track the changes, do the diffs, and see what changes were made and how it evolved and how the scope has changed, right? Requirements, requests, scope, all this stuff. So that's another vote for keeping it in VS Code. Now, VS Code is not available on mobile, at least not on iOS, so that's a downside. However, I now have my dev workstation set up with RDP, so I can just RDP in from laptop, iPad, even iPhone if I wanted to suffer, and I could get VS Code to behave. So those are the things I'm thinking of, and you don't really think about this, but I highly recommend PRD, Markdown, VS Code, Git, the whole bit. Observations. So this exercise was trying to figure out, I didn't use any fancy tool sets and crazy MCPs and like 12-step agent teams, because the idea is if you don't know exactly what these AI tools can do, how they behave, what they can do, what they can't do, what does it hallucinate or just make up on its own? What does it do randomly and how does it misbehave and go off the rails? I don't want to multiply that by 10 with 10 agents running amok doing crazy stuff. I want hand-coded PRD. I want to fully vibe code this solution and see what it does from zero to completion and how is it going to go off the rails. And this was really, really informative and interesting for me. Number one, I would have never thought of this. The number one deficiency of these agents with an AL project, much to my surprise, are the JSON files. Launch.json and app.json. These agents have no idea what these things are. They have no idea why they exist, what to put in them. They will know all the properties, but they will be trained on a blog post from 2021, and they will shove version 13 into your JSON file. And I had a JSON file that says use Microsoft Cloud Sandbox. That I think it was Copilot, Cursor, I don't know, one of the runs. It overwrote that and said, "Oh, you have a Docker container, you have a local sandbox," and it rewrote the JSON file to use a local sandbox. And I'm like, what? And that's when I realized, my PRD does not specify, it specified the app.json, not the launch.json. So I'm like, okay, it has just no concept of what these files are for. It's fundamentally different than code and writing a code unit procedure, permission set, whatever. So you have to clearly define what it needs to do and not do in your JSON. And so I say, update these 3 lines in the launch.json, do not touch anything else. So that's the type of thing that I was learning. Number series. Fundamentally, the agents do not understand number series. They kind of know it needs to be there. They don't know why, they don't know when, they don't know where. So this was also something I learned. If you are not highly explicit about how the number series is set up, defaulted, used, configured, whatever, it just has no idea. So you really need to have, at least in my experience, you really need to have a narrative around number series and be very explicit about that. Relative to number series, you need a setup page. Sometimes it would randomly come up with one, sometimes it wouldn't, sometimes it would just hack something together. So when you have a setup page and you reference the number series and the configuration, that really solved a lot of the fundamental problems that I was having. There's an example of the launch.json. Configuration name, environment type, environment name. Do not screw these settings up. That's what it just overwrote. And then do not modify any other values in this file. And number series. So I had to explicitly tell it, create this number series. Here's the prefix. Here's how you should set it up. Here's where you should specify it on the setup page. And here's how it should be used on this card page. Without that, it's just roll the dice. It was completely random results. Fields and naming. This seems to be the final frontier in terms of where it kind of goes haywire. Basically, the PRD is fine as far as I could tell, but it's just roll the dice as to, non-deterministic whether you're going to get satisfactory results on fields, naming, and behavior. So, for example, on the list page, I didn't ask for this. It puts a button to open the setup page, right? Like no developer would do this. It makes no sense. You don't make the setup page accessible to the user every single day. It's a one-time setup. So this is just kind of the naivete, the childlike mindset of this thing. And it also, in another run, put a setup link on the card page. So this is the type of unpredictable behavior that it did. Without asking, it added this feature. It somehow observed this in a blog post or a sample project, and clearly you see clues of where it picked things up randomly, and it doesn't understand why. And then lastly, this is an example of fields and naming. So I think I did 8 runs and everything was fine. But then on this one run, instead of saying status field and having a value, the word calculated was in my PRD. I never called it calculated status. I said the status field should be calculated based on X, Y, and Z. On this run, it called the field calculated status. And I don't, even though the field is explicitly defined, status : that's the name. So these are the types of just randomness that you're going to get from the non-deterministic nature of this. So I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but this one's a little tricky. It's kind of like, imagine having to sort through your project and try to find these mistakes. Also, the calculated, the value of the status field I'm noticing is unpredictable. So it's great learning. I highly recommend doing this before you try to use any more advanced tools. Get a feel for how these things interact with AL, how they can or can't code AL, because without that, you really won't know how to flesh out your PRD or make requests of these things. You won't know their grade level or intellectual level, right? Are you talking to a teenager or a 3-year-old? And in certain areas, it does fine. In other areas, it's absolutely just running into walls left and right. Monday, lunes. Quiet day. We get these requests regularly of companies who need assistance with Business Central. They provide larger suite of IT services, but they may have limited or no expertise in the Business Central, and they want to make it look like they have this full service offering. Well, we got one request saying, okay, yeah, we'd love to have you help out. I'm like, great, let's talk. So we talk, and the person says, oh, well, in order to work with us, you need to sign all this documentation, NDAs, contracts, and you need to use our email address, and you need to enter your time in our timesheet system, and you need to pretend you work for us, but you don't work for us. We just pay you by the hour. But we do not subcontract. Folks, apparently words don't have any meaning anymore. So, yeah, we're like, knock yourself out. Good luck. So they want a sole subcontractor to pretend they work for this company, part-time, on demand, occasional when needed, but they claim they do not subcontract and do not want us to communicate with the customer through our email or represent our identity at all. Very common. It's been going on for a long time. It's just getting kind of tiring. And words like, well, we can't do it because of SOC compliance and PCI compliance. I'm like, bro, I've read every single line of the PCI requirements. This has nothing to do with PCI and SOC compliance, nothing to do with SOC compliance. So it just excuses. I'm not quite sure what they think they're doing, but yeah. 30 years of history. This is interesting. Got an email from a partner who we help out, and he says, "Oh, I think we're going to lose this deal because this Business Central competitor says that they can migrate all this customer's history. Can we do that in BC?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can migrate history in BC, but it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to cost them, and it has nothing to do with BC. It's just getting their data out, cleaning it up. It's not going to reconcile. There's going to be all sorts of problems, and if they want full transaction history, it's a horrible project." And you replied, "Well, they have almost 30 years of history." I'm like, hand them off to that competitor. Let me know how that works out, right? If some competitor is claiming that they're going to migrate 30 years of history, nope, not going to happen. Or they're going to quote $50,000 to do it. Like, we'll do 1 to 3 years, but more than 3 years, that's just silly. Makes no sense. The customer has no idea what they're talking about. They just don't understand. And if a customer is insisting they need 10 plus years of history, it's like, whoa, why? Like, there's a serious misunderstanding there. Windows File Explorer date. This is what caused me to want to have my PRDs in Git. So top screenshot, Business Central Support Plan PTE PRD version 1.02, 8:48 a.m. I updated the file, I saved it. It was 9:15, and Windows File Explorer still says 8:48. I'm like, what is going on? VS Code, I opened the file, it says 9:15. Like, Windows File Explorer, the date does not match reality, and I was baffled. So that's when I made the mistake of clicking Control-Z to undo stuff in VS Code and in File Explorer. Windows File Explorer rolled back my files, multiple files in this directory when I pressed Control-Z. Lost it completely, tried to recover using OneDrive versions. It was gone. So that's when I discovered that the default date column that is visible, at least on my Windows 11 machine, the date column, I have no idea what that is. It is neither date created nor date modified. It is a random mix of date modified, date created. So if you notice in yellow, sometimes it matches date modified. Sometimes it matches date created. No rhyme or reason, absolute mess. Like, I have no idea why that date field exists or what it represents. It's really, really bad. So heads up if you're using File Explorer. That's why I want my PRDs in Git, just because I don't trust OneDrive. I don't trust Control-Z anymore. I want it committed. Tuesday, Martez. Managing BC environment notifications. Oh my gosh, this is such a hassle. So, you may be familiar with these. If you're a partner, you will definitely be familiar with these, and you will get so many of these, you will no longer pay attention to them. You will not know what tenant, what environment, what version, what date, what time. It'll just be a pile of emails in your inbox, and like sorting through them will be mind-numbing. And I've seen this a while ago. I was on a flight to a conference, and I saw a partner sitting next to me swiping these off of her phone because it was just like 80 of them. And it was the version that says an app or PTE is incompatible with the next version. And she's just swiping away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I would be terrified if I was getting all those messages. Well, it was our turn. We got some of these messages. And one of the lessons we learned, we had a customer on an old version. We told them they had to update. We prepared the PTE, and they started asking questions, didn't focus on the issue at hand, and sent us down this sidetrack. And we all forgot to hound them about the 26.5 upgrade. Well, I believe I learned that when you have a customer's production environment targeted to 26.5, even if you set an upgrade date, when version 27.0 came out, My speculation is that Admin Center automatically updated the next version to be 27. Even though they were scheduled to be upgraded to 26.5, the release of Next Major bumped it to upgrade to 27. We didn't notice that. So in these emails, one of the thousands of emails we get, it suddenly went to scheduled update version 27, and that happened on Monday. Tuesday morning, customer comes in, no PTEs. They'd all been uninstalled due to upgrade issues because the customer hadn't installed them in prod yet. And we don't know if apps got uninstalled, but yeah. So lots of lessons learned. It is a mess, and we are going to build tools and processes to try and deal with it without constant human interaction. And this is like what a typical partner's mailbox looks like. Like, I have 9 demo tenants on top of customer environments, like times 4 environments each, right? So you're getting potentially well over 100 plus emails every month with these messages. It's just too much. So then Directions EMEA was going on, so I heard. And there were some Business Central announcements. And apparently they talked about 2026 release wave 1 investment areas, I guess where they're going to focus. And I have not looked at these. I don't know what's important or what's not, or what's going to be emphasized to start. But what really matters, folks, none of that matters. The important part is there is a new Business Central icon. So my sympathies to anyone who got a Business Central logo tattoo, and my sympathies to the guy who had his ceiling hand sculpted into the Business Central logo. Yes, this is a true story, a real thing. He had his, I'm assuming it was his office, had his ceiling hand, I don't know, plastered or something into the Business Central logo shape. And that poor guy now has an outdated Business Central logo. So, yeah, I mean, hey, if you've done it once, you can do it again. I don't know how you'd hand sculpt this one into a ceiling, but that would be fun. So yeah, so rip to those folks with tattoos and ceilings in the Business Central icon. So that's what really matters, is not the functionality, not the downtime, not the outages, not the breaking changes, the icon. Priorities. Better tenant management regarding the fun that we experienced on Tuesday, or yeah, whatever. Update, you can have up to 4 BC environments per customer. Notification recipients all getting these emails. You have update version you got to pay attention to. Update date, update window. Oh, here's a good one. The update window is now requiring a minimum of 6 hours. It was not like this in the past. I don't know when that requirement crept in, but now if you go into Admin Center and you try to specify your update window from 10 p.m. to midnight, it will not let you. You must be 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And the problem we found is we looked at the customer's update window and it started at 6 p.m. So when we tried to restore for, say, 5 p.m., it did not restore to the prior version of BC. If we went back a day or 2 or 3, it did restore to the prior version. So there is some buffer. If the upgrade started at 6 p.m., the version is locked 2, 3, 4, 8. We don't know how many hours, perhaps 24 hours or something. So if you think you're going to restore to an hour before the upgrade occurred, trust me, you cannot do that in case of a version upgrade. So the version update window, the period of time, I highly recommend setting that to as late in the evening as possible. So if people go home at 5 p.m., that you have a larger window of a restore period in the evening before an upgrade kicks off. So I'm thinking we'll push it to 11 p.m. I don't know if it lets you choose midnight, but let's say 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. That's what I'm thinking will be our recommended update window. So imagine all of these settings for every environment, potentially every environment, every customer, certainly in prod for every customer. And then you've got to deal with breaking changes, incompatible PT apps. You've got your grace period. That's your limited window of 6 months to upgrade, at which point you will get a forced upgrade. And how do you deal with all the email notifications? So we are looking to deal with that. We are building the partner dashboard, and that is a page within Business Central Pages, an app in Business Central where we will be managing all customer environments at a glance, have an automatic list of production environments highlighting anything that is not set to our recommended default of pushing out an upgrade. If the next version changes when a new release comes out, we will hopefully identify that and have automated scripts to update our customers via BC Admin API. So that's what we're looking for. And this was a good lesson, painful, but good lesson that I am not going to deal with this anymore. And BC Admin API is absolutely not sufficient for a partner. Email notifications are completely insufficient to deal with this. No one or two people can deal with this. It's just a flood of emails. Wednesday, Miraculous. Saw a great tweet. A product designer, manufacturer, small business. This guy says, hey, any recommendations for how we can improve our product? Which do you like, product A, B, or C? What are your preferences, pros and cons, and why? And someone said, it's so stupid that you have your product designed this way. You should get rid of this and do it this way. And the guy's like, bro, there's a reason why we did it that way. It's because it just makes it easier and simpler and more standard for all these other reasons. He says, but that sucks. It should be bitter, thinner, lighter, different if you didn't use this battery type or whatever. And someone replied, having clearly developed and created products, good idea. You'll have at least 3 people who want that, right? So as I've said, everyone's like, oh, I've got this great product idea. No, you really don't, because you've never created and tried to sell and support those products. So I thought that was a great line. Mechanical Turk, Ticketmaster. If you're familiar with what a Mechanical Turk is, I am a Mechanical Turk because I am apparently the only parent who sits at home and watches cat videos all day and has nothing else to do except for buy tickets to the latest concert in Los Angeles. So 10 a.m., I had to log in before then, of course, make sure my Ticketmaster account was all ready. So 9:50 a.m., I log in, and 10 a.m., I hear the ding, and I am in the queue to buy artist VIP access special pre-whatever tickets. And I had over 6,000 people in line ahead of me. And by the time I got to pick seats, it was nosebleed or nothing. And 3 tickets cropped up for $900. I was like, nope. So I had to get back in line and choose nosebleed seats. And I got 3 tickets for, I don't know, $200 or $300, something like that. So yeah, that's what I do. I buy tickets for my daughter. BC set applies to ID action. This is interesting. And this is one of those things like, how has nav/BC existed for so long with this feature? And it turns out that I've never really paid attention to this because I'm more on the technical and back end side of things. But if you use the set applies to ID, let's say you enter a $200 payment. You go into set applies to ID, you select a row for an invoice and you click set applies to ID. It will set the apply to amount to the full balance of the invoice, even though you said, I have a $200 payment. We'll say, great, I'm going to apply $809 to this invoice. Like, why? How is this not a bug? How is this even remotely acceptable behavior? So I'm not sure, but a customer's like, yeah, why does it do this? And we're like, I don't know. And so we looked at the procedure that performs this, and there's no parameters, there's no option to specify a different amount. And yeah, so we're having to, I wrote up a change request to deal with this. And yeah, and they're like, well, this is dumb. I'm like, I agree. Not our fault. Like, well, we're not going to pay for this. I'm like, okay, don't pay for it. So we'll see whether they approve the change request or not. Correct versus cancel. This is another very confusing thing where if you are, let's say, in the posted sales invoices list page and you highlight a row and you click on the correct dropdown, you have correct, cancel, and create corrective credit memo. And while I do understand these three options, the fact that they all start with the letter C coincidentally, and the third one has three C's, very alliterative, these folks, is very confusing. There's another C, two customers, yet another. So the correct, cancel, create corrective credit memo is quite confusing. And we regularly are now getting support tickets saying, how do I void a credit memo that's been posted? These are the types of words that are used. And we're trying to navigate the language around this and have KB articles with instructions. So this is kind of tricky. Open to suggestions. And we're speaking about this, and Jocelyn said, oh, yeah, I have instructions on how to avoid this. And we're like, whoa, do not use the word void, unfortunately, because it does not appear anywhere in Business Central. It's not a word that Business Central uses. So we want to stick to the language that is in the UI that will tie to these actions. So suboptimal is how I would describe that. So we're trying to figure out how do we navigate this with users who don't really understand what's going on here or are confused by it. And a UPS is a good investment. PSA, I would recommend having a UPS on your network gear or anything important. A friend sent me a message saying, yeah, the power went out momentarily. Power's back on, but now my router's saying the firmware is corrupted. It's blinking lights in a code that says corrupted firmware. So he has this Netgear Nighthawk something router, and firmware got corrupted simply by the power going out and the power coming back on. And fortunately, he figured out that even in this recovery mode, it maintains a TFTP server. He was able to connect via TFTP and somehow upload a firmware and restore it, and it retained his configuration. But I highly recommend just spending the $150 on even an $80 UPS would be better than nothing. And yeah, I've got UPSs and everything. I've got at least 8 or 9 UPSs on computers, network gear, my fiber terminal for my fiber optic internet connection. So yeah, I have up to an hour runtime should the power go out, and I can shut things down and get on the generators if I need to. AI agent vulnerabilities. These are starting to come to pass. And if anyone tells you that AI agents do not have vulnerabilities, just laugh at them. So Zach Corman is the CTO, I think, of a company called Pistachio that is building AI-enhanced cybersecurity vulnerability scanning, I believe. And he is doing these prototypes to kind of vibe code and test how AIs can be led astray to demonstrate the vulnerabilities. And so he has this mock-up website, blog about tech law, cybersecurity. And he asked like GPT or one of these things, tell me what this website is about. And it says it's mostly about Oreos and baseball. Now, as you can see, this site is not about Oreos and baseball, but he has figured out multiple ways to embed this I don't know what you call it, an AI agent exploit to misdirect the AI in terms of the content. So it's ignoring all the content, but following his prompt, it's prompt injection in his website. And when he has just invisible text, the AI agents are detecting that. Then when he has white text and a white background, that are detecting that. When it's like 0.001 font text, they're detecting that. But he's figuring out ways using style sheets to have a style that is not visible, and it's not able to make that connection between invisible and the style sheet format reference. So he was able to embed that. So it's just an arms race where anytime they add a check for this vulnerability, he circumvents it. So here you go. The bot scanned his website and believes this website is about Oreos and baseball. And why is this important? Well, because these agents are going to be going to websites and performing transactions on your behalf, purportedly. And one example of that apparently is that Perplexity's, I think it's the Comet browser, is an agentic browser, and it will go do stuff for you, such as going to Amazon and doing shopping for you. Now, this sounds terrifying to me. Like, the last thing I want is an AI going shopping for me on Amazon and randomly picking items. But Amazon is now suing Perplexity because Perplexity's agents are circumventing Amazon's guardrails or blocks to their website, trying to prevent bot shopping. Good luck to Amazon on that. And it is Perplexity's agent is performing shopping on the website despite it being a violation of terms of service. And someone pointed out that, funny enough, Perplexity has terms of service that violate its own behavior. So, or would be violated by its own Comet bot behavior. So that was kind of fun. Thursday, Jueves, I was sick yesterday, but I saw that the DynamicsCon 2026 session submissions are open, and I thought I had, oh, maybe not. So yeah, session submissions have just opened for DynamicsCon. That is in Las Vegas, May 12 through 15. And on the Business Central side, there will be both functional and technical tracks available. So we're open to session submissions in either topic or either category. And that is open till December 31st. And then 2026 events, we got Vibe coming up in January, Directions NA in April, DynamicsCon in May, and Dynamics Minds also in May in Slovenia. And the Partner in Vibe conference, I've submitted 3 sessions for that to present. I need to book my flight and hotel for that. We'll see if flights are running by January. Courtyard by Marriott in South Padre Island, Texas. If you are planning on going, definitely go to the partnerin.io website. Look at the 3 airports in the area of South Padre Island to understand your flight options, because it's not, no major airport is within an hour or 2 of South Padre. So check those out and then book your hotel. Okay, and then Friday, I have no idea what I'm doing today. I'm going to try to rest despite people nagging me to have calls today. So we'll see. Summit NA roadshows, 2 left. Houston, December 9th, Fort Lauderdale, December 11th. And DynamicsCon Regionals, 2026, January in Tampa, March in Vancouver, and Denver in April. Double check those dates. And the team in Berlin, El Salvador is doing awesome. Jocelyn is researching financial reports, finding mistakes, finding where something was or was not posted in the 13th period. And Jocelyn has 0 accounting background, 0 ERP experience prior to June 2024. So she is now up to her eyeballs in financial reports, and she is now banging out RDLC format. So awesome job. David is navigating some very complex report layouts, RDLC, Word report layouts, simple object designer modifications, and doing an awesome job there. For both of them are working on real customer projects. Ronald is now, I'm going to assume, ready to be crowned as the #1 Macorma Super Check and Overflow Remittance expert in the Western Hemisphere. He is preparing an internal demo for Tanya and Alyssa to print 30, 40, 50 remittance lines on checks, different check formats, understanding the overflow options. And he is doing support tickets with Macorma to point out some discrepancies in the documentation versus the application behavior, finding issues, submitting those requests, making product recommendations. So he is all over the Macorma check printing functionality, and that is because Macorma has overflow remittance capability, which is not native to Business Central, and we need that for US customers. So he should be wrapping that up today and prepping for a demo next week for Tanya and Alyssa. And Franklin is refining the partner dashboard. We did a new beta release on that, and I sent him a dozen minor requests to refine that. And that is going to help us manage multiple tenants, multiple customers, dozens of environments, updating the version, the update date, update window, telemetry, you name it, all from a single dashboard. And Fatima is wrapping up her PMP certification preparation process, and that involves, she's done well over 40 or 50 hours of studying to study for the PMP, meet the minimum requirement, and now have over 100 sample questions, 100 preguntas, in order to prepare for the certification exam. So in a couple of weeks, hopefully, she will be a PMI PMP certified expert. Welcome to the circus, Fatima. And Q&A. What are you working on? Hopefully you are preparing for a relaxing weekend. And if you would like some good entertainment, check out this YouTube channel. Ben Walker, BNWLKR on YouTube. Some years ago, this guy had an absolutely absurd, stupid, crazy idea. He says, what if forks were made of salt? And this is the type of absurd content that I love about YouTube. This got over 12 million views 2 years ago, and he created a new business where he created forks made out of Himalayan salt, solid forks. And he had to figure out, how do you manufacture at scale salt forks out of an apartment? It is comedy gold, but really interesting engineering, CNC milling, water jet, you name it, manufacturing, distribution, sourcing, logistics, the whole bit, iteration, product development. And 2 months ago, I didn't see the video until yesterday, I guess. He manufactured thousands and thousands of salt forks that people had ordered from him. And this is apparently before year end. So I guess he's catching up on his videos. I don't know the timeline. And now his new thing is sugar spoons. So he has learned his lesson. And rather than subtractive manufacturing, he is now doing molding and additive, not really additive manufacturing, but mold-based manufacturing. And he has nailed a design and manufacturing process for sugar spoons. Really, really amazing journey over the 4 videos. I just like, he's total tongue-in-cheek, total satires, totally making fun of himself and pointing out the idiocy of this entire process, but really, really interesting challenges that he's had to solve, and just shows all the rigors of, or all the challenges of product development. So great job, Ben Walker. Yeah, so he's now going to make several $100,000 selling sugar spoons. Yeah. So with that, have a good weekend. I am going to go drink some coffee and lay on the sofa and rest and try to avoid emails for the rest of the day. So, que tengas un buen fin de semana. Adios.